if there's anybody I wish I could be a little more like, it would probably be Pac. You know, he just, I think more than anything, I mean, aside from his music, which was absolutely incredible, I think he just drove people with who he was, the way he carried himself, how little he cared.
I pull out $1 million and stare at the shit.
Call me the post office, because we're only talking about wrapping paper today. We are talking about the highest ticket sale in hip-hop memorabilia history bought by another rapper. We're only talking about wrapping paper today. So tell them to bring out the old packing peanuts.
Asparagus.
Recently auctioned off was Tupac's ring from back in the 90s that he custom made, and it was purchased by our boy Aubrey Drizzleton, Mr. Drizzle himself, and so he bought it for a record-setting price. So we're gonna see if it's worth it or it's not worth it. So Tupac originally had commissioned this piece to be made for him in 1996, and obviously Tupac isn't around anymore, and it went to auction recently. Mr. Drizzleton has picked it up. It came in at over $1 million, so $1.01 million for this Tupac ring, and it was originally estimated to be worth around $200,000 to $300,000. If they had to put a guess on it, obviously it surpassed that by quite a bit by selling for over $1 million. So, you know, over 3 times the amount that they had originally thought, maybe around 300,000 max, right? Drake kind of blew the lid off that shit for real. Going back to those shipping terms, it's essentially just, you know, it's a gold diamond ring with some rubies on it and stuff. Impeccable rubies. They're pigeon blood rubies. Very nice. At least the middle center one is, I believe. The rest of them probably are as well, looking at this. It's the cream of the crop for rubies, right? And the setting on it was the top of the line setting at the time that this ring was done. Now, by today's standards, the setting on this is not the best. It could definitely be improved, and if this ring was made today, it would be improved, so the setting would be quite a bit better than what it is right now. But back in the day, this was the top shelf setting. This was the best that they could have done. So I think a lot of people, Instagram comments and everything, they're seeing this and they're like, you know, Drake got ripped off like a Band-Aid. The people are saying that, you know, people are like, $1 million for that, $1 million. I was going over just a general gist of it. I could make this ring, you know, with genuine rubies, not with pigeon bloods, at let's say like $20,000 easy, but like red garnets or whatever, you could easily make it for about 10. The setting and everything and the completion of it, the craftsmanship of it was the best for the time, but as we're seeing with modern jewelry and the way the settings of diamonds and everything have changed over time, and the way that things are constructed nowadays, we have a higher standard of setting stones and everything, but for the time, this was the best that they had. So what's Drake paying $1 million for? Well, he's paying $1 million because it's Tupac's ring. He's not paying for the gold. He's not paying for the diamonds. He's not paying for the pigeon blood rubies, because all of that, while it's expensive, it's not $1 million expensive. So he's paying because it's a memorabilia piece. If you had somebody paint the Starry Night, it could be expertly made. You'd be like, oh my God, amazing work of art that takes a lot of skill and talent to be able to do. Yes, it does. But while it's, you know, very important and all that, it is not as expensive as the one that's historic and has a lot of cultural significance, like the one Van Gogh painted. So if it's not made by Van Gogh, you could make the same argument like, oh, it's just gold, diamonds, and rubies. Why is it made so much? For expensive pieces of art, you could be like, all right, it's just oil paint and a canvas. And that's not what you're paying for. You're paying because probably the person who made it is significant. It had a piece of history to it. People are valuing it as a society. So people value Tupac. People think that he's cool. So people put a lot of respect and value on his name and what he does. So same sort of thing that's happening here. So a breakdown of this piece. The ruby in the center of the piece is a cabochon cut. So imagine like a little ball, a little marble almost. It's just a very smooth surface, a very smooth sphere, a little bit different from the diamonds on the side, which are just round, brilliant cuts. So they're, you know, there's just your regular round brilliant cut thing, but you can see that the smooth texture, almost like a little bouncy ball or marble, isn't there with the round diamonds on the side. So it's called a cabochon cut. Well, we're speculating for this ruby in the center. We think it's around 1.3 to 1.5 carats in the center here. And if we were just matching it to the price of pigeon blood rubies back at the time that they were making this, around 1996 it says here, you would be looking at about $6,500 per carat of this natural pigeon blood ruby. Pigeon blood rubies are like the top echelon of rubies that you can buy, pretty much the cream of the crop. And if you were to put that on the crown of it, if you were to say that you were using the top echelon, the highest grade pigeon blood rubies for the crown of this, I could imagine you spended $5,000 to $6,000 just on the crown here. If you were to use the absolute top grade shit, top grade shit, okay, not cutting any corners at all. And speaking of cutting corners, these I'm not saying this was happening. I'm just saying this is a possibility that some things run in when they order certain things that they're not 100% sure of the quality with. So these, the diamonds on the side here, let's look at these 3 stones set in the middle here. The cabochon cut ruby, which is in the middle, the 2 brilliant cut round diamonds on the side. They are set in a bezel setting. So the bezel setting, it can essentially, for some people who don't like going the extra mile to make it the top tier shit, for some people that like to cut corners, not a fan of cutting corners, but some people like to cut corners on some things. And they'll use this bezel setting to kind of hide some imperfections in the diamond, which is pretty easy to do with this bezel setting because you can hide certain things. You can see from the picture. You can't see the full amount of the diamond because some of it's hidden in the metal. And what you can do with some of this diamond that's hidden in the metal, like let's say there's a scuff or something on the side of the diamond that would devalue it. Let's say there's something in there that makes the diamond less desirable, less valuable, and at the end of the day, the consumer is getting a less valuable diamond than they paid for. You could potentially hide it in that bezel setting because you're not really going to be able to see it. And that's been done sometimes from some people in the past. They've, found things out from certain jewelers or whatever. People have gotten messed over, and that's not cool at all. But sometimes it happens. I don't think it's happened here. But I'm just saying, this is a potential thing that could happen. And it's kind of interesting. It's not interesting if it happens to you at all. And it's definitely not interesting when you're the jeweler doing it because you're a scumbag at that point. It's made in 14 karat yellow gold, stamped, and it's a size 8, right? Originally made in 1996, and Tupac made the design himself. So right now, just looking at it, you're looking at 30 to 40 grams of gold, $2,000 in metal, roughly. You're looking at like 5 carats of natural white diamonds, and you have big ones here in the center of it, the 2 large ones, which are pretty cool. We're speculating that probably those white diamonds on the side are probably about half carat each, give or take. All right, so if you look at the back of the ring, you're gonna realize the part that rests on your finger, right? So not the exterior, the interior of it, if you will, the part that touches your skin. You're gonna see that there's some holes in it, right? So you're gonna be seeing like the little holes and everything. Some people say it's to make the diamonds breathe, but it just makes it easier for the people to clean the diamonds. Okay, it doesn't really make the diamonds breathe very much. Okay, we'll get that out of the way. It doesn't really make the diamonds breathe. Diamonds don't need to breathe. They're not alive. It's called a gallery back, which is what the holes are. Essentially makes it easier to clean, and it was a hot style back then, which a lot of it is a hot style back then. I mean, nowadays, if you were to do this like a top shelf way that wasn't cutting any corners, you would make the entire thing solid. You would, make this solid, no gallery back. If you wanted the look of it to replicate it exactly, obviously it could be done, but it just wouldn't be made that way as the first idea nowadays. And let me just point out that I think it was cool that It was, made for Tupac, and Tupac wore it. It was a very significant thing in the rap game that time. It was also bought by another rapper. It was bought by Drake. I think that's just good for the whole, ecosystem of all that. This could easily have been sold to somebody who's a private collector, and no one would ever mention it again. Nobody would talk about it, and no one would ever see the ring again. It would just go into somebody's collection. It would go into somebody's, underground basement little dungeon area in a little glass case. Happens all the time. People never hear about it. You never hear of the sale. People are more private, and that's fine. People want to do that. But I think for certain things like this, it's just kind of cool to put it in a headline, put it out there, have people have a conversation about it. Drake's going to be showing this off. He showed it off on Instagram. It was made for a rapper, bought by a rapper, and then he debuted it. When he revealed that he's the one that bought it, it was to advertise another rapper's album. Like, that's cool. Or can we at least appreciate that it's keeping in this whole ecosystem here and it's not going to some random dude that's just keeping it locked up and probably never going to wear it ever? I mean, Drake's got enough $1 million shit that he doesn't care. He's going to be wearing it along with his other stupid things. Is it worth $1 million? Well, that's up to the person paying it. It's not worth any more or less than the person is willing to pay for it. And obviously that we've seen it's worth $1 million to Drake at least. It doesn't really matter if it's worth more or less afterwards, to be honest with you. Drake's not gonna sell this. He's not buying this to make a quick flip. He's probably gonna put this in, some bedside drawer somewhere, and when some person's partying up at his, little loft area, they're gonna knock down the drawer looking for the or whatever, and then they're gonna be like, oh, what is this, Drake? And it's gonna be right next to like King Tut's butt plug, and he's gonna be like, oh yeah, this is Tupac's ring, like this is a cool little festive piece, little, Drake doesn't need conversation starters, but it's a thing to talk about amongst people that own cool things and like memorabilia. But yeah, tell me what you think about this Tupac ring and Drake's acquisition of this new piece of his. And I just think it's really cool to have pieces of jewelry, pieces of watches, any sort of art or whatever that connects you to a piece of history, an important person that you care about or something, or anything that can take it to another level that's not just jewelry or not just a painting hanging on a wall or something. People like really value the whole story aspect of it and historical aspect. I mean, I do. I like that stuff a lot, and that's a real passion of mine, being in it, being in this whole thing and selling people whatever. It's a fun piece. I don't really know a whole lot else to say.